the most about life.
Chester Bennington's voice shook stadiums and defined a generation, propelling Linkin Park to worldwide fame with hits like In the End and Numb.
The award goes to Linkin Park.
But behind the powerful performances and massive success was the story of a fighter who poured his pain into music that would leave a lasting impact on the world.
And that's what I remember, is this just like lightness, but then you'd hear him and it'd be like, this guy's got darkness.
This is the story of Chester Bennington.
Became quite famous in Arizona, the label was not interested in a third album. Tension grew between the members, which led to the band's breakup in 1998. Before continuing Chester's story, we need to move to Los Angeles, where another talented teenager grew up. His name was Michael Kinji Shinoda. Unlike Chester, Shinoda's childhood was quite normal. His parents lived together and always supported and encouraged their son's passion. From the age of 6, he played the piano, sang in a children's theater group, and wrote his first song when he was 11 years old. He had to leave piano lessons because his teacher did not share Shinoda's passion for hip-hop, especially the music of his idol, Dr. Dre. She just couldn't teach him to write music like that. At the age of 16, Shinoda was given a sampler, and he began creating his own music, to which he rapped. Michael was a friend of Bradford Delson, who also took music lessons from an early age, was obsessed with Metallica, and formed his first band called The Pricks. The band also included his neighbor, Mark Wakefield. Later, Mike, Mark, and Brad met a young Robert Gregory Burden, who started a new band called Relative Degree. Mike attended their sessions just to watch Rob play and pick up interesting samples for their songs. In the winter of 1995 to 1996, Mike and Mark formed a new band called Zero, with the intention of making music that combined their passion for rock and hip-hop. With this idea, they recorded their first demo, and fate brought them together with producer Jeff Blue. Jeff was able to see the band's potential, so he offered them a deal with a little financial backing, $4,000 up front and $1,000 for a demo recording. Despite the arguments between Mike and Mark about who would be the leader of the band, they signed the contract. This allowed them to buy new instruments and equipment to enhance their live performances. By the way, at the same time, the band Papa Roach also tried to sign a deal with Jeff, but the producer preferred Zero. In early 1999, a representative of the band Zero, who was handling the contract, was drinking at a bar with Jeff Blue. There was Grey Goose vodka on their table, so both remembered a good band that broke up not so long ago, Great Days. They also remembered Chester, who at that time was far from music and was busy with his family. Without thinking long, they called Chester directly from the bar and offered him a place in the band. It happened on the eve of his birthday, so Chester took the offer as a real gift from fate. He was sent tapes to check out the Zero material and send them his own interpretation of some of the tracks. Chester was not only blown away by the sound, he had never heard anything like it, so he immediately knew he wanted to be a part of it.
So I like the way it starts off. It's kind of mellow, you aren't quite sure where they're going with it. It's a good intro for radio, too. It could be a nice radio edit.
The next day, Chester left his own birthday party and called Mike Jones, asking for permission to use his studio. Mike had previously worked with Great Days, recorded their first demos, but that wasn't enough to allow Chester to record due to an old friendship. The studio cost $100 an hour, so Bennington had to record his demos at the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences. 2 days later, he called Jeff, said it was ready, put the phone next to the tape recorder, and played what came out. What I heard floored me. Every crack of his voice had a story to tell. It was iconic, genuine, vulnerable, urgent, beautiful, and hits you in the gut. I immediately called Brad and Mike and told them I was flying Chester out to Los Angeles. Chester understood very well that this opportunity should not be lost. Although the decision was not easy, firstly, he left his wife at home. Secondly, he quit his stable job and went almost nowhere. However, he quit the job immediately after his boss assured him that he would be able to return if things went wrong in California. So, already on Monday, Chester was in Los Angeles, met the band, and gave them his tape. Everyone was delighted, but at the same time, they had to listen to several more candidates for the role of vocalist. One day, a guy who was supposed to sing right after Chester came to the audition. After hearing Bennington's voice, the boy refused to audition and said they would be idiots if they didn't take Chester right now. He was really skinny with glasses, and he was wearing this awful butterfly collar shirt that hung all over him. It made him look like a cheesy guy from an Arizona nightclub bar. But his vocals on our demo were incredible. He sang like a freaking beast, the same way he sings now. Not even knowing what success awaits them in the near future, they had dinner at a local pizzeria, took their first photo, and started working the next day. Mike Shinoda knew from the first meeting that Chester Bennington would change his life. Chester gave his all, and its energy was contagious to all the other participants. It may seem like Chester's life had finally turned on the bright side, but in reality, things weren't so rosy at first. He risked everything, and for the first time, literally lived like a homeless person. He spent nights at the studio, at friends, and slept in the car. But this did not scare him away. On the contrary, it motivated him to work harder and harder. And later, the situation improved.
I mean, I was like, F the world when we started this, and now I'm like, I love you! I'm looking outside like, oh, the birds on my car! Look at that! That's so cool!
Moreover, he seemed to have found a best friend. It was growing closer to Shinoda, with whom he adored writing songs. No matter how different their pasts were, when they sat down to write, magic happened. In both memories, it felt like a session of psychotherapy, especially given how intimate Chester's lyrics were. Some of his lyrics addressed that stuff, the abuse. So when he and I were talking about the songs, he told me about it. It was a weird way to get to know each other, but that's how it happened. Mike Shinoda said that the only person he spent more time with than Chester was his wife. It wasn't friendship at first sight, but the more time they spent together, the more Chester opened up to Shinoda.
I've never heard such a crazy upbringing, like such a crazy childhood, like running wild, like in the streets and doing hard drugs on the roof of his high school, just like just barely staying out of jail. And so different. And that's what made our dynamic what it was. It's like, I didn't grow up like that.
Mike knew his past, understood his interstate, and even wrote songs about it. Chester said that one of his favorite Linkin Park songs is Breaking the Habit, which Mike wrote. Its words resonated with Chester so much that he kept interrupting the recording because he couldn't hold back the tears. Nevertheless, Chester recorded all the vocal parts in one day. The debut album was called Hybrid Theory and was independently published by the band with a circulation of 1,500 discs. The band, with Chester on vocals, was for a while named the same as their first album, but later, that too was changed. Realizing that no one knew them yet, they let everyone download the songs for free on their website. Moreover, they went to music forums and chat rooms in order to promote their music. The guys were not too shy to engage in their own promotion. Sometimes they entered the popular chat of the Korn band and wrote something like, "A new band has appeared. Hybrid Theory. Rate it." Between August 1999 and May 2000, the band played in several clubs in California and Arizona. On August 27, 1999, they were invited to the Big Fish Pub in Tempe, the same club where Grey Daze had last performed a year earlier. Unfortunately, their performances did not have much success. Besides, they continued to hear rejections from record companies, and no prospects were foreseen. They sincerely thought that they had invented a unique style, but while they were on their way to the top, quite a few bands appeared before their eyes that combined both rap and rock in their music. Then they decided that they would simply be the best of them. Surprisingly, this simple strategy soon paid off, and in 1999 they finally signed a contract with Warner Bros. Records. The first problem was the name. Warner already had a band called Hybrid, so each member came up with about 30 names, and then everyone voted on the best one. If the guys had a different mindset, today we might know Linkin Park as Clear, Probing Loggers, or Platinum Lotus Foundation. Chester came up with the name Linkin Park when he drove past the park of the same name in his hometown. Then appeared a new problem with this name. There were a lot of such parks in the United States, and a domain with such a name would cost $10,000. With the rest, they found a free domain, Lincoln, for $10. And on May 24, 2000, they registered the domain linkinpark.com. The first show they performed under the new and final name was June 9, 2000 in West Hollywood. Then they gathered about 30 people, mostly their friends. Free musicians who were used to doing everything on their own could not avoid conflict with serious people from the label who sought to control everything. For example, the label wanted the charismatic Chester to front the band, but he refused because he thought it was unfair. Furthermore, the label tried to edit the songs. They wanted to change Mike's style to make him look like Fred Durst from Limp Bizkit. The label created many difficulties, but the more time the guys spent in the studio, the stronger was the bond between them. They continued to work on their music and their style without losing their own authenticity, and without listening to stupid advice. The album was written at a marathon pace. Mike and Chester were both exhausted and happy. All the pressure they felt from the producers was poured into the song that eventually brought them their first notable success. On October 3rd, 2000, the guys went to the nearest 24-hour store and waited until midnight to be the first to buy a copy of their debut album. They were trying to guess how many copies they could sell. Someone said about 3,000. Chester was a real optimist and said 8,000. By the way, if you want, you can pause and write your version in the comments. How many copies did they manage to sell? We'll tell you the correct answer in a moment. Everyone was wrong. In the first week, the album sold 50,000 copies, which greatly exceeded all their expectations. The album broke sales records in the United States, and Linkin Park almost instantly became the idols of all teenagers. The album consists of hits including the band's most famous, most recognizable composition, In the End. Even if you're not a fan, you'll 100% recognize this song from the first few seconds. It's interesting that both Mike and Chester called it the most pop song of Linkin Park, although at first it did not have a name, but it had every chance of not even getting on the album. The central idea of the composition is hidden in the chorus, and the words, "I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. On the one hand, quite depressing. On the other hand, quite motivating. It is in this uncertainty, according to Shinoda, that the meaning of the song is hidden. Of course, every fan managed to find something of his own, but the text directly refers to the long journey that the band took during the first few years of its existence. The song is a real treasure for various interpretations, but it is obvious that it is directly related to the disappointments that not only each member of the band faced, but also any person in general. Chester wasn't too fond of the song at first, but grew to love it as he realized how important it was to the band's fans. Another reason, or result, of such popularity can be considered the fact that the song was performed literally at every concert. Dozens of covers of this hit contributed to this, from the band itself to rappers like Jay-Z. It's safe to say that the album was destined for success, although the musicians doubted it. In addition to good music that literally pushed the boundaries of the genre, the album was also filled with strong lyrics in which they were not shy in talking about their problems. This is what made the band the voice of the teenagers of that generation, and what led to the formation of one of the largest and most famous fandoms in the history of music. There is one story that perfectly demonstrates how much their popularity grew after the album release. On November 11th, Linkin Park was supposed to perform at a sponsored concert, which was supposed to take place in the parking lot of a shopping center. But instead of 500 spectators, 5,000 people came. And while the area around the parking lot was paralyzed by traffic jams, the new stars calmly prepared for the performance.
Forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame. Put your name to shame, cover up your face. You can't run the race, the pace is too fast, you just won't last.
In honor of the album going platinum, Chester got a Linkin Park tattoo on his back. He later got another tattoo dedicated to the band, a soldier from the cover of Hybrid Theory on his left leg. In general, Chester's photos show that he was a fan of tattoos. He first tattooed a carp on his right bicep when he was 18 years old. His zodiac sign, Pisces, is tattooed on his left bicep. A zombie gypsy can be seen on his right arm, a pirate skull on one elbow, and a skull with a web and a